Hey guys, I am Jay Bates.
And I'm Sean Stone.
And this is the introduction of a new series we're trying to do called I Get Email because, like the title says, I get email.
I get email.
Basically, anytime we get a question via email that we think applies to a much larger audience that would benefit more people, then we're going to share it in one of these little quick videos. We don't want these videos to be long. We don't want them to be crazy formal. This is an informal setting, just a casual conversation, bringing you along for the ride and hopefully able to provide a little bit of information to all of you out there. So the first question is from Joe. Joe says, you keep mentioning your shop budget in a few of your videos. I think this would be a cool piece explaining how, why, what you do, how it would be related to hobbyists and people at home. I'm curious how you do it and what your process looks like. It doesn't hurt to promote responsible practices for the hobby. So responsible practices, we'll get into that in just a second, but I want to break this up into two sections.
Sure.
The beforehand, while this is still a hobby, and then anything beyond the realm of hobby. So trying to proceed it into a business, I guess. Mm-hmm. So here's a question for you. This is still a hobby for you. It's not. We both do this full-time online content. Hypothetically, yes. This is still a hobby for you. You are into woodworking. How do you justify, at that point, pulling money, say, from household income to create a project?
Okay, well, the first thing that comes to mind is I justify it because probably the wife wants it. Yeah. So if she wants it, okay, I've got to go spend money on wood or materials or whatever for that project. And so, I guess that would be the leading factor just for making something for the house or whatever. But just taking a certain amount of money and setting aside and saying, okay, this is just for the hobby and this is what we're going to stick to, basically, right?
Yeah, so also ultimately, what are you wanting? If you're wanting a specific piece of furniture, how much is that going to cost for you to go buy it? And if you can make it cheaper, then in my opinion, that's justification to make it.
Yeah.
Sometimes that may require an extra tool purchase to complete a specific task. Real quick recommendation on tool purchases: never buy anything unless you need it. Don't buy things because you think you'll need it. You end up wasting money or buying stuff that you just collecting dust and not being used.
Yeah.
So if you can make it for less money than what you can buy it, then in my opinion that justifies a little bit of a budget.
I'll agree with that.
Out of the household income. And then of course a lot of us are married, so you have to have the second person in the family, the other head of household, to approve or sign off on the invoice.
And really that's probably where it initiates from. Can you build me this?
Yeah, there's beyond the scope of that, there's not really much you can say as far as the budget in terms of a hobbyist woodworker, because if it's still a hobby, then you've got to get your money elsewhere. So if you're getting money from the craft itself, so let's say you are transitioning this hobby into a profession, or let's just say you want to maintain it as a hobby. You have no desire to do this full time or whatever, but you want it to be self-sustaining. Then that's where the budget comes into play a little bit more.
Yeah, I think so. So you just, once you get to the point to where you are, this is a long-term hobby, if you will, just take the money that you would make building things for other people or, however you can make money from the hobby and just reinvest that back into what you're doing for tool purchases or for, future materials or, and just keep it going that way. And that way, eventually, you can just get rid of that household budget, coming to the shop.
Yeah, absolutely. The key word there completely is reinvest.
Yeah.
A lot of people that I have interacted with, friends and family, see that I made this particular project to sell, and I made this particular chunk of revenue. Well, that means I can go out on a date on Friday night and spend it elsewhere or whatever. In my opinion, my mindset is if I made this particular profit, then that profit is going to help me build something else, build the next one. I'm going to set a little bit of material money aside. That's something else to also take into consideration. And don't forget about, if you are wanting if you're wanting your hobby to be self-sustaining, to where you're not pulling money out of the household income, you still have to set money aside for not necessarily shop upgrades, but materials to start in on the next project.
Yeah, and I guess you could look at it a couple of different ways too. So if you're into this hobby just for extra spending money so you can go out on that date or you can go on a trip, then, I would figure in, okay, what is it going to cost me? What am I going to have to bring out of my household budget? And figure, okay, I'm going to make X amount of money, and be sure that X amount of money is going to be larger than what you brought out of the household income. And so if that's your mindset, then, there's your extra spending money for each trip or date or whatever you want to do. But if this if this is going to be a long-term hobby, then reinvest. Take that money, reinvest back into the hobby to grow the hobby. And to be honest, that's probably how a lot of full-time guys get to that point, is because they keep reinvesting.
Absolutely. And when you hear the word investment, you think of large quantities of money, but that's not necessarily the case. When I first started trying to maintain my hobby as a self-funded effort, I wasn't really making hardly any money at all. If I only made $10 or $15 extra from the materials, then that was $10 or $15 extra that I had to be disciplined with and still put back as a reinvestment into the hobby or whatever.
And I think discipline goes a long way there, because I think you and I both operate on the same business model, so to speak, because, and you can touch on this if you like, but in my opinion, if you're going into this full time, the best way to do that is to not have any debt going into it, or to keep it debt free.
Yes.
So you have more freedom there. And
we're specifically talking about the hobby, woodworking, whatever your niche is, the debt-free beginning and maintaining the debt-free of it. Household aside. So I started my business with an initial $200, well, at this time it wasn't a business. I started the snowball of having a hobby that was self-funding with initial $200 investment from household income. And I used that, to use the tools that I already had available to me to buy materials. And those materials I used to make benches and picnic tables, and that's what I sold, 2x4 benches and picnic tables. Sold those, didn't make hardly any profit, worked my butt off. It was a lot of work. I really don't want to be in that situation again. But you learn from it, and that allowed me to get some profit, a little bit of profit, and put back into it, and repeat that cycle over and over until I had a little bit of money saved up to buy, I think the biggest, or the first purchase that I made out of my hobby reinvestment was either my planer or my bandsaw. But that same mentality, that same concept has continued through my entire hobby path that evolved into a career out of this. And since day one, that initial $200 investment that I did pay back into my household income, it was a borrowing situation. My wife made me sure of that. It wasn't a grant. It was a household borrowing thing. But throughout then and today, the business is still debt-free and still self-sustaining.
Yeah, and just to touch on that a little bit, I mean, people can go about it different ways. Like, you borrowed a little bit of money from your household budget to get started. In my situation, I was previously into other hobbies and that I wasn't into anymore. So I took those things and sold them, and took that money and introduced a different hobby. So you can repurpose things and sell and put the money in different places.
Reallocated resources.
There you go. Yeah.
Fancy term.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess that's basically the gist of it. Until you can get to a point where it is self-sustaining, then it's all 100% personal situation based, because you have other people that are in play with your family and your other aspect of your household life. So hopefully that helps. I think we've touched on everything we can. If you guys have any other questions, comments, leave them down in the description below. And of course, send us an email.
Yep.
Because we get email. Anyway, we'll try and do these once a week. And if you have anything, just let us know, and we'll talk to you next time.
See ya.